In today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast, we are joined by friend of the show, River from the PickASide podcast, to discuss Cade Cunningham's season, whether he feels like he was proven right about Cade Cunningham. We'll break it down in today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years for the Locked On Network, been a credential media member over the last 3 years. I appreciate all of you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel, leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And today we are joined by friend of the podcast, River. You can find him over on Twitter at DuragRiv, and you also can find, obviously, him over at the PickASide podcast. River, you were on the podcast last summer, and you had some takes about Cade Cunningham. So I had to get you back on this summer before this season started to get you how you feel now. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Still will never get over how cool your intro is with the whole little music and stuff like that.
Appreciate it.
Cade, man. Cade, what can I say? I mean, like he makes me smile. He makes me happy. He's been one of my favorite players since he was at Montverde. Watched every game, Oklahoma State. I still feel like I'm not proven right. I still feel like it. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like there's more. I feel like there's just so much more that he can do, so much more that I believe he can do. But last summer had some takes. This year he pretty much accomplished everything. All NBA team, all-star game, made the playoffs for the first time. And this is after the first 2 years of just abysmal hoops from the Detroit Pistons. A lot of stuff going on in terms of just injuries to himself, missing most of the year. The year before that, playing with a bad foot. Just to kind of run it all down to go into your year 3, year 4 season with these guys and to just perform at an elite level. I'm talking about have the usage rate of Luka, being able to put up the insane numbers, have big time performances, offensively, be the entire Detroit Pistons. And of course, with a little bit of help from JB Bickerstaff and them bringing in shooters and stuff like that. And of course, from the young core that we'll talk about, but just talking about Cade, he was in some nasty conversations last summer. He was in some real disgusting conversations with Scotty Barnes and stuff like that. And I don't mean to throw names and throw shade, but for me, he was never in those conversations. I feel like he was in those conversations with Jalen Brunson and the Halliburtons of the world. And I feel like he's shown that this year. And now it's only progression from here. And I think they've built a quality foundation, quality stability over there in Detroit. And it starts and it ends with Cade Cunningham.
So, like you mentioned, you were really high on Cade this past summer. Season plays out. All-NBA team, all-star team, breaks the playoff win drought for the Pistons for the last 15 years. First playoff win since 2008. Actually, 16 years, to be honest. It's crazy. Did all of that. And you said you feel like that there's still more there. So before we get to what you believe he can even improve upon now, was there anything this past year, despite how high you were on Cade, that you were shocked to see from him? Or was everything last year you were just like, oh, yeah, I expected that?
I didn't think the 3-ball would be that consistent, especially with the usage that he had. With somebody with that high of a usage, you expect the 3-ball to like fluctuate. But it just honestly, in terms of his scoring, because for the most part, Cade never really had too many bad stretches in terms of just scoring the ball. Like he had some efficient nights, he had some inefficient stretches, but there was never a moment I feel like throughout the season where it was like he was rubbing it off like 15, 20 games or like under 20 points a game and stuff like that. Like for the most part, he was pretty consistent in putting up those numbers. And then the 3-point shot was there, the mid-range shot was there. I would love if they can just make it a little bit more easier for him. I think that'd come with Ivy being a little bit more healthy, them being a little bit more creative on offense. But for the most part, the 3-ball, of course, and then just him being consistent as a scorer. I mean, throughout the year, he was there for us when we needed him to be, whether it was a scorer or a playmaker. Even on defense, he made some timely defensive plays. And for a guy with the type of usage, for a guy that young, I felt like he kind of, rose to the occasion, and you didn't really see too many bad stretches from him.
All right, so let's get into this upcoming year. It's going to be a big year for the Pistons. Their first year, I think, coming off of like a real successful year where there's going to be expectations. So now, after the season Cade just had, what are you expecting to see from him this year, and what do you think he has to improve on to take this next step into maybe like firmly top 10 status?
I think the ball handling and the turnovers are, 1-1. I do think the ball handling still needs to improve. I don't think it's tough for a 6'6", 6'7" guy to improve on just speed. I feel like that's not really a part of his game. He's more craftiness, footwork. But I feel like the handle needs to improve. The left hand, right hand finishes at the rim. It was weird because on B-Ball Index, he's like really good in terms of finishing talent, which means he makes tough layups, but doesn't have the highest percentage at the rim. And then of course, just the turnovers, the lackadaisical ones, because I feel like I don't mind the turnovers where you're trying to make a tough pass. Okay, but the lackadaisical ones are the ones that really bother me. And with a guy that controls the game so much, I understand why he has those lackadaisical ones, probably because he's too tired or just running out of gas. But I do need those. I do need those to cut down if he wants to get into that upper echelon. And I'm looking at it as, you're trying to get into that SGA, Luka, Steph Curry, Brunson tier. I feel like right now, if he's not at the floor of that tier, he's probably at the top of the next tier with Hallie, with Trae Young, and John Morant, and all them other guards. He can get to that next level. He definitely can get to that next level because I feel like on the defensive end, he shows effort, and offensively, he can do a little bit of everything. But I would say the ball handling for sure, and then just cutting the turnovers down.
Yeah, the turnovers definitely were a bit much at times this past year. You mentioned like high usage players, they're going to turn the ball over a lot. It's kind of the thing you have to live with. But there's definitely a line that you can't cross, and Cade definitely was getting too far over that line at times with the turnovers, especially like you mentioned, the careless ones. He had a lot of ones where it was just like, what? Why? It doesn't even seem like he really cared about throwing the pass. It was like, what was going on? Along with that, the finishing, I think 100% has to improve. You mentioned it. The B-Ball Index grade, a few years ago, I saw it, and I was like, that's really like weird because it feels like he's not that great of a finisher right now, but they grade him as like an A+ finisher or whatever. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's just about the fact he makes such tough, almost all of his finishes at the rim are just such tough finishes. If he can just improve around the rim, I think he shot around 57%, 50 to 51% on layups within the half court, which is not very good. So if he can finish a lot better at the rim, maybe turn some of those looks into free throws, I think that will really help him take this next step in efficiency, which I think is just really where he has to improve upon. Just efficiency, round out, the edges of his game. I think he'll do pretty damn well this upcoming year. Let me ask you
maybe
this.
even add a post game. Like if he can add a little post game in it, that'd be cool. I would love that too.
He started to add that a little bit this past year, too. He went to the short mid-range a ton. He started going to that little hook shot every now and then, the floater range. He started going to that a little bit more. So I think if they did incorporate that even more into the offense, he probably would be a little bit more efficient as well. He dominated the 4 to 14 foot range. I think he was in like the 86th percentile, shot like 50% in that range. He was crazy good. The question I want to ask you is, do you see a world where he could be an All-NBA first-team guy next year?
Yes. I thought he should have made it this year. Of course, that's a little biased.
Oh, fair enough.
So I'll give it a little. It is a little biased, but I'll also say he had a legitimate case if you factor in load, if you factor in overachievement and stuff like that on the first team. I mean, outside, of course, if Wemby was healthy, he probably was going to be that fifth spot. But I feel like the first four guys they had, if I'm not mistaken, was Giannis, it was SGA, and I believe Luka, but it was like four guys who were like locked first teamers, and that fifth spot was hanging around Donovan Mitchell, Ant-Man, Steph was getting tossed around there, and then Cade. I feel like those four guys had a chance. I feel like Cade had a better chance than Donovan Mitchell. The only dub Donovan Mitchell got was they were the number one seed in the league, so that's fine, cool. But I feel like Cade had a strong chance to make a first team this past season. This year, if the wins go up, the turnovers drop, the efficiency at the rim gets better, he can have another case again making the first team.
Yeah, if he makes the first team this after this next year, that would be absolutely crazy, especially with the conversations like you mentioned, like last year that he was a part of. Like it was some nasty stuff being said this past year, man. I bookmarked so many tweets, dude. It was a lot of nasty stuff being said about him.
So bad, man. Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad.
But he proved them wrong, and hey, for those of us who stayed on the Cade Cunningham Island, we were proven right. So feels good. We'll see how Cade plays this upcoming year. I think he's going to continue to get better. He's still very young. He's not even close to his peak yet. We'll see where he can get to next year and the years to come. But coming up, I want to talk with River about where the Pistons' young core is as of right now. 2 years ago, after that hellish season, people weren't feeling as high on the Pistons' young core anymore. It was at one point they were high. Then after that year, it was like, oh, I don't know if this is really it. Then this past year, they make the playoffs. They turn around a little bit. I want to find out where River is at with these guys coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. And that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and tests from a single app. And their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. Again, that's with OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers with OpenPhone. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free to develop on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Substack, playback link down in the description below. Just wrote about Marcus Sasser, how he could be a hidden gem on the Pistons roster if another team wants to come trade for him. Go check it out if you haven't already. I think you guys will really enjoy it. But let's go ahead and, River, and get into the Pistons' young core. We talked about Cade. But it wasn't just Cade this past year that helped them take this next step and make the playoffs and get their first playoff win in 15, 16 years. The improvement of Jalen Duren, the improvement of Ausar Thompson. Ivey started to play a little better as he, right before he went down with injury, which was unfortunate. Heading into 2025-2026 season, the Pistons have a young core of Cade, Ivey, Ausar, Ron Holland, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart. Where are you at with this young core when you look at them compared to the rest of the league?
It's a tricky question because I feel like it's this young core has had like the narrative on them switched maybe like 2 or 3 times in like the last 2 seasons. Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, they're from my understanding, they're the oldest of the core, or they've been here the longest, I'd say. But just going down the road, obviously Cade is the leader. He's the head of the ship. Like you mentioned, Jaden Ivey was playing really well. He was playing well before he went down. He started to find something a little bit in the jumper, and I thought that was important for him. But obviously we kind of saw this team take an extreme jump when he kind of went out with an injury. And you've seen it. We've kind of talked about it on Twitter. The Pistons fandom is not really too fond of Jaden Ivey. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know. I've been seeing him a lot they want him to get traded. He's come off the bench. I don't know what's up with that. I feel like Monty Williams stunted his growth. I feel like that was important to, put that into perspective. This year, you saw a little bit of progression. Let him try it again. I feel like this year he deserves right. He deserves an opportunity to start next to Cade, this new Cade that we have, and see if that can work. But if that doesn't work, you have Ron Holland, who I think Ron Holland is really great in transition, a little bit of a hothead, but shows the effort on the defensive end. Long athletic wing, I want to say, a guy that likes to get to the rim. His jumper looked promising in summer league, but he only played like 1 or 2 games. But he seemed like he was clearly too good for summer league. So that's definitely something you want to see in your year 2 player. Excited to see how he looks. Isaiah Stewart, I feel like Detroit would have won that series if they had Isaiah Stewart against the Knicks. I feel like those minutes where you saw Jalen Duren, Paul Reed and stuff, and Jalen Duren could not stick with Cat. I feel like Stu is a much better defender, especially out there in the perimeter. Jalen Duren, he's a better rim protector. I feel like Duren's obviously the better rebounder, but Stu brings a different mentality. He brings a different toughness that I feel like you needed in that Detroit Pistons series, and I feel like he would have been huge. Maybe they don't win it, but they definitely go 7. He for me has carved out his role. He's going to be that backup. He's a strong defensive player that you can have late in the games because the jumper continues to improve. And then for a guy like Ausar Thompson, man, he's the other gem because I feel like his brother gets all the love, and his brother has played 2 seasons. They were the number 2 seed in the West. Amen is incredible, amazing, but Ausar doesn't get talked about enough for him being, I would probably say, a better defender than his brother at this point. Probably not the same offensive player, but Ausar is just a freak athlete. If he can get, much better in the ball handling department, the decision making, maybe get a little bit of a mid-range jumper, just be more aggressive on that offensive end. Cade and Ausar could be the 1-2 punch. I love that Detroit didn't jump the gun. I love that they're letting their young core, kind of build themselves out before they know what they have. I think that's important. You don't want to make these vast, drastic, game-changing moves and then they flop in the end, like go trade for a Zach LaVine who's getting $45 million or something like that. No, trust in your young core, and I think this young core is really good, has potential. Ausar is an insane worker. I think Jaden Ivey is going to be a good player. That's kind of the big three that you're leading to. And then Jalen Duren kind of had a tale of two halves where first half inconsistencies in the work ethic department on both ends of the floor, didn't have the same motor. And then 2025, he turned a completely different notch. You saw more effort, the motor in Jalen Duren, the double-double machine, the monster, the beast. They called him Baby Dwight coming out of college for a reason. He has that type of physicality. So I'm excited. I still believe in this young core. Does it stack up with a young core like OKC? Maybe not, but I think teams like Houston, teams like Orlando, teams like Charlotte, I feel like I'd probably take Detroit over those teams just because you have the finished product in Cade, you have Ausar, you have Jaden. Like there's depth here along with good players.
So you mentioned you think Ausar and Cade could be that 1-2 punch. Is Ausar the player you're next highest on within this young core?
Yes. Yeah. He's phew, because like I made a comp. I think you tweeted under it. It was like, yo, would we be upset if he's like a Gerald Wallace, Sean Marion type comp? And then people were mad, and I'm like, why are you upset? Like this is him now. Like if he's Sean Marion right now, you kind of love that. Like maybe Sean Marion was like a 37% 3-point shooter, but Sean Marion was a 20 and 10 guy, an all-star, a key important piece to a Nash-led offense that we're making WCFs and stuff like that. So if Ausar is that's elite and mind you, he's the 10 times the athlete Sean Marion is. So I was just lowballing it. So if we're getting a super athletic Sean Marion, I mean, I'm excited. I think Ausar's work ethic keeps him in the loop. Obviously, he's among those guys of if they get a jumper, it's going to be scary for the league, like the Ben Simmons, the Zions of the world. But I really believe in Ausar because people get confused with, because you're like, to be a spacer, you need to be a 3-point shooter. That's not always the case. Ausar does so many other things in terms of just backdoor cuts, being able to screen and roll, being athletic on the glass. Like he does so many other things. He doesn't need a jump shot, but I think that's important to get. But I'm extremely high on Ausar just from him having blood clots, missing most of the year, coming back, and you just seen how elite he was defensively, his motor, just nonstop. People love to bring up that play where Brunson I think it was game 4 or it was one of those games where
it was the final game.
Yeah, it had the big crossover. It was a good move. It was a great move. I'm not going to deny it wasn't.
No, he got him.
Yeah, he got him. But Ausar that series was giving Brunson some fits, strong fits. So I'm excited about Ausar's just ceiling because I love his motor, his work ethic, and he's already one of the best defensive players in the world in year 2.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I absolutely love Ausar. I think he can be just an absolute freak. I think he already is a freakish athlete, obviously. I think for people who aren't as high on Ausar, and I absolutely love him as well. The Thompson twins are my favorite prospects to look at. I had so much fun watching them. But Ausar, what people don't understand about Ausar is that he's not just like a great athlete. Like Amen and Ausar are arguably one of the best athletes we've ever seen play in the NBA. Like they are up there. So the margins are not as they can there's things that they can get away with not having to be as skilled in particular skill sets because the athleticism will make it easier to do so. So Ausar is able to something I'll bring up. Ausar may get beat on a drive at times, but then he's so athletic that he isn't really beat. He'll just block you from behind. He'll catch up and give you a good contest. He doesn't have to be, like you mentioned, a great 3-point shooter because I feel like he does space the floor to the baseline. Teams have to cover him to the baseline. You saw in the New York Knicks series multiple times in Game 6 and Game 5 that the Knicks were like, we can't keep giving up this dump off, this alley-oop to Ausar. We have to take that away. And then the weak side 3-point shooter is open. So there's other ways to space the floor. Ausar does that. I completely agree with you that he has to improve the ball handling. I'm not looking at the 3-point shot because I don't think it's really realistic for him to become like a. I mean, I was talking with a friend the other day. And I was like, how good of a 3-point shooter would Ausar have to get where you want him spacing in the corner instead of doing anything else? Like what?
Yeah,
how good? Like, is 34% enough for you to be like, oh, we'd rather have him space in the corner than do anything else he can do? It's like,
yeah, it's like that's the corner. So if you're a 34% corner 3-point shooter, the shortest spot, probably the easy spot to shoot from, it's like, now do we really want you even in the game? You know, like that's the trickiest part. And you mentioned it, like both of them, Thompson brothers, one-of-one athletes, like up there with MJ, Zach LaVine, Vince Carter, like that good already. Plus they're 6'7", you know. And I think Ausar, you mentioned it, like he can get the margin is so small. He's not even at his what's the word I want to use? Like maturity IQ wise, he's not even there yet. Like he's still extremely young. And he's like right now, he's moving off straight instincts, and his instincts are so good that if he can get the mental aspect of it, because like you mentioned, he does get beat on a couple of drives where he's biting too hard or he's a little bit too aggressive. When he gets the mental aspect of it, he's the perfect defender, and that's going to be scary. And if he can just be a lot more better in the ball handling department, man, listen.
No, I think he could be this year. I think he could be a top. I just did the top 100 for the Locked On Network a few days ago. I think he's going to be a top 60 player at least this year for the Pistons. I think he's going to make that jump.
Where'd you have him rank? Like 88 or something like that?
I think I had him. I think I had him 63rd.
Okay.
I think that's why I had him. Somewhere around there. But I had a lot of defensive players higher.
Oh, okay.
Like Kamara, Denny, and stuff. I had him top 35.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'd have put him top 30.
I think I had him 31.
Okay. That's not terrible. That's not terrible at all. I like that list.
Amen is definitely further along than Ausar offensively, much further along. He's a much more physical driver, a better handle, better finisher at the rim right now. But I do agree with you. I think Ausar is like, unfortunately, Wemby's in the league, so Wemby's probably going to win the Defensive Player of the Year the next like 15 years. So it's like unfortunate. But like if it wasn't for Wemby, I think Ausar like would be in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year for like 10 years from now. Like he's that great defensively, and how versatile he is defensively. It's just rare with that. You get that versatile defender with this type of athleticism, with the kind of IQ you're talking about, with the ability to play make and make reads and anticipate. It's just you don't get those kind of combinations in a player, and that's why I agree with you. I think he is the second best player on the team. I can't wait for his season this year.
If I'm not mistaken, he only missed the defensive team because games played, or was it minutes?
Yep. It might have been both. Right? It definitely was games played, but it might have been minutes too.
Because he would have made it this year, unquestionable. Like easily, he would have made it this year, and that would have been crazy. Because year 2, deep, like making on the all defensive team.
And that's with, again, like you mentioned, that's with getting dropped midseason with no training camp, no preseason, no offseason at all, and just being dropped midseason to a team and completely turn their defense around just in January with no and having no stamina basically. Like it's just it was crazy.
After the year, Monty Williams was on terrorism acts and putting him in a corner, knowing he shouldn't be in a corner. Like this is what people don't understand. Like Monty Williams did everything he could to stunt this young core. Give them a chance. Like he did, and it's not even Monty's fault. They had to pay him a ton of money to get out because he retired at first. And Monty, if I'm Monty, I'm taking that money too. So it was a bad signing for both parties. Both parties. Monty should have never went there. Detroit should have never signed him there. Monty did such a bad job that last year. And he's a good coach, but that was just an abysmal job that he did there that it made people really believe Cade was not good. Ausar's not going to be good. Jaden Ivey's terrible. Like, that's how bad of a job he did. And it's like, now we're sitting here a year later, and God, what good coaching can do for you.
Yeah, JB made an absolute huge difference. So I can't wait to see what they, with the offseason of development with this coaching staff already in place. I'm interested to see where all these guys end up. But coming up, I want to talk to River about where is the ceiling for this team next year. They didn't make any crazy moves this offseason. They're relying on the young core. So with that, where can they get to next year? We'll talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, or not Game Time, excuse me. That is another day we're going to talk about Game Time. But today we'll talk about FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. And when they're all about baseball or under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game with your friends or even while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach while they're out there outside. I do suggest you guys maybe get outside a little bit. But while they're outside doing whatever, you can be on FanDuel watching the game, taking advantage of some things. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started and bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bet if your first bet wins with FanDuel. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. But River, the Pistons finished as the 6th seed this past year. They lost in the first round in 6 games to the New York Knicks. Coming out of that series, they ended up losing Malik Beasley due to some unfortunate circumstances. They let Dennis Schroeder walk. They let Tim Hardaway Jr. walk, and they replaced them with Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, and they drafted Chaz Lear, even though I don't think he's going to play any kind of real part of this team next year. Those were the 2 big additions, Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson, and they're bringing all the young core back. They're bringing everyone back. Where do you believe this team can get to next year? What do you think is the ceiling for a team that just had the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference that is getting pretty weak because of injuries, teams stripping down their salary cap? Where do you think they can get to?
Yeah, it really is unfortunate, the Malik Beasley stuff, because I felt like they probably could have still brought him back, and it would have been Beasley, LeVert, Duncan. That's dope. That's a dope offseason. But unfortunate with certain situations. But Karis LeVert, really good get. I think he provides you exactly what you can get from Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. This is a guy that can put the ball on the floor, has some playmaking chops, can get to the rim, can shoot the 3-ball shot. It really efficient last year. And then Duncan Robinson, you can get him off actions. You can get him off cuts. He can shoot the 3-ball. Defenses, it is what it is, but he's 6'8". And then you bring back the young core. I think with Boston out the picture, Indiana, I don't want to say they're out the picture because I still think they're a tough team that's going to make the play-in, playoff. You still have a really good roster outside of Halliburton. And although Halliburton brings you a different floor offensively, Nembhard brings you a different floor defensively. I think they're going to be a really good defense this year. I think that's going to be the flip of them. Outside of that, New York, they got really better in the offseason in terms of just bringing guys that can play off the bench. They up their coaching. Mike Brown is a better offensive coach than Tom Thibodeau, so he's going to – now, Alphonse was top 5 last year, but I think he's going to bring more creativity to the offense. Then you got Orlando. They shook some things up, brought in Desmond Bane, who I think is going to help their offense. You got Atlanta bringing in Kristaps Porzingis. If he's healthy, that's a good get. Jalen Johnson's going to be coming back. So for Detroit, it's really relying heavily on the young core improving because they didn't bring in no star like a Porzingis or Desmond Bane. They just brought in 2 quality guys that can fit around their core players. They're going to, go into this internal development thing. I think the ceiling for them is make the second round. I think it has to be. I think especially with Boston out, which Boston felt like last year they were unbeatable. Everybody felt like Boston and Cleveland was the teams that were going to go to the ECF, playing the ECF, and then whichever one of those teams is going to be in the finals. Now Boston's out the picture. Cleveland, you can't really trust them health-wise in the playoffs. I still think they're a really talented team, but healthy Cleveland, is that ever going to be a thing in the playoffs? So you got Cleveland, you got New York, you got Detroit, Orlando, Atlanta. I think those are the 5 teams right there that are going to be gunning for a finals in the East. I think you obviously have other teams that'll make the playoffs. You still got the Bucks hanging around, Toronto hanging around. But if I'm looking at that, outside of New York and Cleveland, which you gave Cleveland a run for their money, I don't see a world why Detroit can't push for an ECF or make it really difficult to get there. I can see a world where they lose in 6 in the second round in a tough second round series, and they're like, damn, all right, that's a success. I can see a world where they take a team to 7 in the first round. If they play Cleveland, they go to 7 games. I don't look at that as a failure either. I think it's all about, like you mentioned it before, 16 years, no playoffs. Consistency is key. Consistency is the first thing. Consistently make the playoffs, then be an extremely competitive team. I think the ceiling this year is second round. I wouldn't hate a first round exit if it's down to the wire, but I think this team has to make the playoffs. I think they're pushing for a second round, and I think that's their ceiling.
Yeah, I think you got Cleveland, like you mentioned, New York. I think those two teams are in a class of their own in the Eastern Conference right now. I have Orlando ahead of the Pistons right now just because I really like Desmond Bane's. I really like the acquisition of Desmond Bane. And the Magic were hurt, like insanely hurt this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And they finished, how many games behind the Pistons? Like within 5 games of the Pistons, whatever.
It
So
was
it's
close.
like, yeah, so despite that, how bad the injuries were, they still were like within, it wasn't super close, I guess, but like it still was within, whatever. So I think if they're healthy this year with Desmond Bane, with improvements to their young core, which I do think their young core will get better, I think the Magic probably just have a better roster right now. So I give the Magic, I think they're going to be the third best team. I think Atlanta and Detroit are fighting for that fourth seed. I really like what Atlanta did. I love the pieces they brought in, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard. They brought in Kristaps Porzingis. I really like everything Atlanta did. I like Zachary Rissache. I like Jalen Johnson getting back healthy. So if those guys, and that's another team that just has to stay healthy. We don't know if that's going to happen. Luke Kennard deals with injuries. Jalen Johnson deals with injuries. We know Kristaps, he almost died apparently this past year. Who knows what's going on with him? Like
that was
like,
crazy.
No one,
it was crazy.
No one, we
Nobody
don't know
knew
what happened with Kristaps. Yeah, I still don't know. I still don't know what happened to him. But like,
they just kept saying he was sick, and they didn't say anything. Like they was just like, he's sick. He was telling me I can't breathe. It was like nobody's giving us no information. He's just sick. We don't know what type of sickness. Nah, it was really weird. Like really weird. So I guess that's probably why he went for nothing essentially in that trade, because you don't know. Like they don't know.
Right, exactly. And if he can stay healthy, I really like what Atlanta did. And I think Detroit and Atlanta will be fighting for that fourth seed. But I do believe it's those 5 teams that you mentioned. It's New York, Cleveland, Orlando, Pistons, and Atlanta. I think those 5 teams are in a different tier than the rest of the teams. I think Philly maybe could challenge if they somehow Joel Embiid somehow pulls his knee together, but it doesn't sound good at all right now that this is, that's going to be something that happens. So I do think the Pistons should be pushing for a top 4 seed. I do agree with you. I don't think they have to win a first round series. I think a lot of fans are going to want them to win a first round series and have that expectation, but I don't think they have to. As long as you're competitive, you take it down to the wire. This is still a very young team in the very early stages of their team building. Making it into the first round, losing in 7 games, whatever, is not crazy. Now, if they can make it to the second round, that would be a fantastic next step. I think you need to get home court advantage if you want to try to do that. I don't know if they should just be continually, 5-6 and try to win on the road, even though they did win 2 games at Madison Square Garden this last playoff, so who knows? But yeah, I do think they should be pushing for a second round. I do think that should probably be the expectation for this team. Before we wrap up, River, I want to ask you this. What do the Pistons need? What are they missing that you think they have to acquire eventually? Maybe not this year, they have to trade for it. But what do you think is you look at this team, you look at this young core, what is it that you think they're missing to really take that step into contention?
That's a good question. I would say an offensive philosophy. A lot of it last year was Cade save us. Cade dribble penetration, Cade pick and roll. I would love if we can see Cade in some pin downs, him bringing up the ball, giving it to another guard, they getting a mismatch, him on the block, or him coming off a, Rip Hamilton pin down for a mid-range jumper. He's good for those, or him doing a snake, him getting it, and then now he's in the snake pick and roll, able to do something like that. I would love that. Some off-ball work. Would love to see a little bit more Ivy on ball, but I guess it's offensive philosophy. And then I guess an offensive star that can play defense. So genuinely a Jalen Brown would be dope. That's the guy I'm thinking of, that type of skill set, maybe with a little bit more. A Devin Booker, because I know that was getting dangled around this offseason. That would have been elite, but I understand why they didn't pull the trigger so fast. You want to wait and see. That's fine. But Devin Booker next to Cade would be a movie. I think that type of player would be dope. But yeah, just offensive philosophy and maybe a little bit more creativity on offense. A another offensive star, because that's really something that we're missing right now. We don't have an offensive star like outside of Cade. Like Ivy, we're still waiting to see. Ausar's not there yet. Duren's not there yet. Ron Harlan, year or two. Stu's never going to be that. So we're still waiting to see where that offensive star. A lot of it was, who can step up for me tonight. We had Malik Beasley, who was great last year. Tim Hardaway had his moment, but it was really about who can give us what that night. And then we, relied on Cade at the end and that defense to hold it down. So definitely just a lot of offense.
Yeah, I that's what I think. I think they need an offensive heavy four. I think that's what in order to take this next step, they need a guy at the 4 position that can be an offensive star next to Cade. Their offense was not great in the half court this past year. It really was carried by their defense, their transition offense, their early transition, fast breaks, that kind of thing. Their half court offense was what you mentioned. It was just Cade save us and Malik Beasley hit crazy shots that only we've seen Clay and Steph do. Like that's what their half court offense really came up to. And it was some tough stuff. So if they could get a 4, I had a dream of a certain 4 in the league, but I'm not going to say his name anymore because there's all kinds of stuff that goes. There's a bunch of stuff that happened off the court. I don't know what's going on with him now off the court.
Oh, are you talking about? I don't even know who you could be talking about. So many people.
See, that's the tough thing about it too. That's the.
Does he play in New Orleans?
Yep.
Oh, that guy. Okay. I was thinking him too. That would be dope. That would actually be dope. I didn't think of him. I'm thinking about it now. That would be cool. Yes. I'm not gonna say his name, but yeah. Okay.
But
I like that.
So, but that we had a bunch of apparently some serious stuff happened off the court. We haven't heard anything about it, so I've said to everyone I just won't mention him no more. But that kind of player is what I think they need. They need a 4 that can take over from Tobias and just be that offensive guy that can just create his own shot within the half court, get penetration to the rim, and be someone else that creates advantages within your half court offense besides Cade. So I do think that's what they need. I think their defense is going to be set for the next, however long, as long as they got Stu and Ausar and Cade. When your franchise player is able to be a 2-way player like that, I think that really sets your floor and defense high. And when you have Ausar and Stu, I think your defense will be fine. So I do believe they have to just improve their half court offense to get somebody. But that's all we've got for you today. River, let everyone know where they can find you and the podcast.
PickASide everywhere, man. PickASide podcast on Twitter, PickASide podcast on Instagram, Rivio with 5 O's on Instagram, Durag Riv on Twitter. All our stuff is on PickASide, man. That's where I'm at. That's where the home is at.
I appreciate you coming on, man, making time out of your day. Come on, it was always a lot of fun. Hopefully, Cade makes you look even more right this season, and maybe we can start seeing MVP conversations at some point.
We've passed LaMelo conversations. I would say that because that's where we were at.
The Scotty Barnes conversations were nasty, dude. Those were nasty.
Oh my God. Bro, it was insane, bro. We were in Scotty Barnes, Jalen Green conversations, and it was just like,
dude, the Jalen Green was disgusting too.
With all due respect to Darius Garland, love him to death. We were in those conversations. I was like, come on, like, Cade, come on, like,
one of your, I forget which one. One of the PickASide guys are really high on Scotty, aren't they? Isn't there someone?
Yeah, it's Drew. It's Drew.
Yeah,
Drew loves Scotty, and I just be looking at him. I'm like, he's not better than Cade. I know you want to try to keep like pushing it. So Drew's the Scotty guy. Franz is Joel. Joel's the Franz guy, and I can respect guy. Franz. And Dells is more. If I had to pick a guy from, he's probably a Mobley guy. So we all have. Joel used to be a Jalen Green guy. Funny enough. So 0 for 2. Yeah, 0 for 2 for that one. But yeah, we kind of love that draft class because it has some good players. It does have some good players.
It does. Yeah. That draft class is really deep. I like Franz a lot, so I can respect the Franz. Mobley's very good too. It has a lot of good players in that draft class. Just Jalen Green and Scotty is just like that's not I can't vibe with that one, but
yeah.
We'll leave it there. Appreciate you again, River, coming on. Have a lot of fun with you. Hit that subscribe button down below. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. I appreciate all of you guys making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.